Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. Family dynamics can be messy, especially when one person takes another for granted. For years, my sister Lisa, 32 female, has treated me, 27 female, as her personal on-call babysitter. She never asks if I'm available. She just assumes I'll drop everything for her and her kids. After years of this treatment and being pushed to my limit, I decided to take a stand. Here's the full story. Lisa and her husband Mark, 34 male, have 2 kids, Emma, 5 female, and Noah, 3 male. They're adorable, but also a handful, like most young children. Lisa and Mark both work full-time, and while I understand how demanding parenting can be, they seem to think it's my responsibility to fill in as their unpaid childcare provider whenever they need one. I'm currently in graduate school, juggling demanding classes, part-time work, and preparing for my final exams. My schedule is already tight, and I've made it clear to Lisa multiple times that I can't always help with her kids. Still, she brushes it off and assumes I'll step up when she needs me, no matter how inconvenient it is for me. Lisa often guilts me by saying things like, "You're so good with the kids. They adore you." Or, "It's not a big deal. You'll have plenty of time to do your schoolwork later." She always frames her requests as if she's doing me a favor by letting me spend time with Emma and Noah. This isn't a one-off issue. There have been numerous occasions where Lisa has imposed on my time without considering my plans or responsibilities. Here are just a couple of examples. One Friday evening, Lisa called me in a panic. She claimed she and Mark desperately needed a date night to reconnect and asked if I could watch the kids. I had a study session scheduled with classmates for an important exam the following Monday, so I told her I couldn't. She didn't take no for an answer. "Don't you care about family? We never get any time for ourselves, and you're just sitting at home. You can study another time. The kids love spending time with you." Feeling guilty, I canceled my study session and drove over to babysit. Lisa and Mark didn't return until well past midnight, and I barely got a thank you. The next day, I was exhausted and unprepared for my exam, which didn't go as well as I'd hoped. Another time, Lisa showed up unannounced at my apartment with Emma and Noah in tow. She said she had a quick errand to run and needed me to watch the kids for about an hour. Before I could respond, she dropped them off and left. That quick errand turned into a 4-hour shopping spree. By the time she returned, I'd missed an important work meeting and had fallen behind on my schoolwork. When I confronted her, she waved it off, saying, "Relax, you're young, and you'll have plenty of time to catch up." Last month, Lisa and Mark excitedly announced they were planning a week-long vacation to a seaside resort. They were thrilled about the trip, saying it was a much-needed break after months of hard work. I congratulated them, assuming they had made appropriate childcare arrangements. But then Lisa dropped the bombshell. They expected me to come along to babysit for free. "You get a free holiday out of it, and we get some time to relax. It's a win-win," Lisa said with a grin. I asked her what helping out would entail, and it quickly became clear that they expected me to be a full-time babysitter while they lounged on the beach, went out for dinners, and enjoyed the resort amenities. I politely declined, explaining that my final exams were scheduled for that week, and I needed to focus on studying. Lisa didn't take the news well. "Are you seriously prioritizing exams over family time? It's not like you'll be studying every second. You can bring your books and study while the kids nap," she argued. Mark chimed in, saying, "It's just a week, and you'll get to enjoy the seaside for free. Don't be foolish. We can't afford a babysitter, and you're great with the kids." Despite their guilt-tripping, I stood firm and said no. But they didn't let up. Over the next few days, Lisa called and texted constantly, trying to convince me to change my mind. She even got our mom involved, who called to say, "Lisa's been so stressed lately. You should help her out. It's just 1 week. You can study on the resort." After weeks of relentless pressure, I decided I'd had enough. If Lisa and Mark refused to respect my boundaries, I'd teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I eventually gave in and agreed to meet them at the train station on the morning of their departure. Lisa was ecstatic. "Thank you for finally coming around. You'll have a great time, I promise," she said. But I had no intention of going. On the day of their departure, Lisa and Mark waited at the train station with Emma and Noah, bags packed and excitement bubbling. I, however, stayed home. I turned off my phone and spent the morning catching up on much-needed studying. When I finally turned my phone back on, it was flooded with furious texts and voicemails. "Where are you? We waited for hours, and you ruined our vacation. We didn't have time to find anyone else to watch the kids. How could you do this to us? This was our first vacation in years, and you destroyed it. I hope you're happy." Lisa later called me, screaming that I had humiliated her in front of Mark and the kids and left them scrambling to figure out what to do. They ultimately had to cancel their trip because they couldn't find a last-minute babysitter. When Lisa finally calmed down enough to talk, I told her exactly why I didn't show up. "You've taken advantage of me for years, treating me like a free babysitter and ignoring my boundaries. I told you I couldn't babysit during your vacation because of my exams, but you refused to listen. This isn't about ruining your vacation. It's about you needing to learn that my time and commitments matter too." Lisa accused me of being petty and vindictive, saying I should have just told her I wasn't coming instead of letting them wait at the station. "I did tell you I couldn't babysit, but you didn't respect that," I replied. "Maybe now you'll think twice before assuming I'll drop everything for you." Lisa and Mark are furious with me and have been telling everyone in the family that I ruined their vacation out of spite. Some relatives agree with them, saying I should have handled the situation more maturely and simply refused again instead of telling them to wait at the station. Others, including a few close friends, think Lisa and Mark had it coming. They pointed out that Lisa has been selfish for years and that it's about time someone stood up to her. While I feel a twinge of guilt for the way I handled the situation, I also feel a sense of relief. For the first time, I stood up for myself and showed Lisa that I won't be taken advantage of anymore. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for agreeing to babysit and then not showing up to teach my sister and her husband a lesson about respecting my time? OP's sister has been taking advantage of OP for far too long, treating OP like a free babysitter without considering her life, priorities, or boundaries. OP made it clear that she couldn't help due to her exams, and instead of respecting OP's decision, she manipulated and guilt-tripped OP. Agreeing to her plans and then not showing up may have been harsh, but honestly, she left OP no choice. Sometimes people need a wake-up call to realize they can't treat others this way. Hopefully, Lisa learns to respect OP's time and plans better in the future. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. You've gone above and beyond for your sister in the past, and instead of appreciating it, she made a habit of exploiting your kindness. This wasn't a one-time issue. It's a pattern of her ignoring your boundaries and assuming you'll always be available. Not showing up might seem extreme, but you'd already told her no, and she chose to ignore you. They could have made other arrangements if they'd respected your refusal in the first place. Hopefully, this teaches her to plan better and stop treating you like free childcare. Not the a-hole. You're in graduate school, and your exams take priority over a free vacation where you'd be expected to babysit 24/7. Lisa refusing to respect your initial no and manipulating you into agreeing is the real problem here. By not showing up, you made it clear that your time and commitments matter, and you're not just at her beck and call. It's unfortunate they had to cancel their trip, but that's on them for not respecting your boundaries and planning ahead. Not the a-hole. Your sister's entitlement is out of control. You've already sacrificed your time and plans for her countless times, and instead of being grateful, she expects it as a given. Telling her no should have been enough, but she kept pushing and manipulating you. Not showing up might have been a bold move, but it's one she needed to realize you're not her on-call babysitter. Hopefully, this will make her reconsider how she treats you and start respecting your time and boundaries. You did what you had to do. My 38 female brother's high school sweetheart died about 4 years ago, which left my brother, 45 male, raising 3 kids, 16 female, 14 male, 13 male. A year later, he remarried to Elizabeth, 41, who has 2 kids from a previous marriage, 16 male, 12 male. His children and her family do not mix. It's been as contentious as hell since they entered the picture. His wife came in demanding and expecting to be called mom. She doesn't respect their boundaries, as the same goes for her sons. We've sat him and his wife down with the children and let the children express how they feel. Wife gives fake tears, saying she didn't know they felt that way. Brother overlooks a lot of stuff. Then they go back to doing the same crap. Out of my late sister-in-law's things, My niece was given her wedding dress and the jewelry she'd worn, which were heirlooms passed down from her mother's great-grandparents. Dress was in a spare bedroom in a closet by itself because how large the dress was. My niece often takes this dress out and looks at it. This same room was going to be turned into a nursery room for new baby. Wife was aware that the wedding dress and jewelry belonged to my niece. I offered to move it. I was there helping them out one day. She stated that they wouldn't be using that closet because there's another closet in the room that's big enough for everything. A week after giving birth, I get a call from my niece who was hysterical and borderline having a panic attack. I had to calm her down before I could understand her, which was that sister-in-law sold her mother's dress and jewelry. I asked did she tell her father. She said he told her that he would buy her a new one. I texted my brother and he confessed that the dress was sold without his permission and that he had no clue it was gone until my niece called. I asked what did he plan to do. He said what could he do now that it was gone. I called him a puss in boots, not the word I used. Brother was out of town for work. Got to brother's house. I ushered the children in the car and asked my sister-in-law had she lost her ducking mind. Told her that she had 10 minutes to get back the dress and jewelry or that I was going to call the cops. That I was evicting her. She hollered that this was her and my brother's house. Told her that was funny because the last I checked, my name was the only one on the deed. Brother has been lying to her about the house. Oh well. She had put the jewelry in her jewelry box for safekeeping. The jewelry was in a safe box in the closet with the dress. Why move it? I called her a vindictive bee. What she'd done was malicious and hurtful to my niece. There was no excuse. She said she sold it because they needed the money. Told her she should have sold her own wedding dress. Got the jewelry and dress back in one piece, which are now here at my home. Kids are here with me until my brother gets home from work. Immediate family backs me, but my brother thinks I went too far. Please give it to me straight. Am I the a-hole? Not at all. She stole a girl's memories of her deceased mother. That's a special kind of nasty in its own category. Clearly, she's being extremely toxic toward the children who are not biologically hers, which is something no child should ever grow up experiencing. Your brother needs to put his foot down, be a dad, and actually protect his children. He caused the problem by bringing her into their lives, and he needs to fix it. Otherwise, this will only escalate, and I wouldn't be surprised if the kids go no contact with both parents. Not the a-hole. I'd evict her anyway. She's going to get much worse to your niece now. Get her out and let your nieces, nephews enjoy their house. Also, I can't comprehend how much of an a-hole your brother is. Getting married a year after his sweetheart dies and treating his own kids like crap. Pathetic. Evict her and your brother now. You're lucky she hadn't actually sold it. There was a post on here a few months ago from a distraught person whose brother-in-law's new wife had sold her late sister's jewelry that had been in the family for years, and they didn't get it all back. And the ones they did get back weren't in great condition. Send them the eviction letter now, not the a-hole. If brother can't afford his own house, kids are old enough to state their preferences, and sister-in-law is so aggressive, I would make a deal with brother. He can stay in the house if he gives up custody to OP, assuming this is feasible, or he can divorce. No way those kids should go back to living with that toxic woman. They are definitely not going back. They'd asked the night I picked them up to not make them go back, they were so upset. I wouldn't dare do it. Just typing this gets me upset, but I'm definitely not giving them back. After years of miscarriages and failed IVF, I, female 38, finally was able to convince my husband, male 46, that we should adopt. I just know I was meant to be a mother. My husband wasn't into the idea at first, but after spending upwards of $100K on IVF, he finally capitulated. We went through an agency that charged us just under $60K to find us a baby to adopt. When we matched with the birth mom, female 19, we also spent a lot of money supporting her. Not just medical bills, but also giving her money to buy healthy food and paying her rent so she wouldn't get evicted, etc. I was in the delivery room when my daughter was born, and I got to cut the cord and everything. I was the first person to hold her and the first person to feed her. Birth mom mostly cried a lot, which should have been a red flag, but I was too wrapped up in falling in love with my beautiful baby girl. Birth mom signed the papers and I took my baby home. My state has a 2-week revocation period for adoptions. Yesterday, she changed her mind. After all the money and time and emotional support and promises she made to me, she changed her mind. The agency says birth mom will have to take me to court now. The police won't come and take my baby, thank God. She is young and broke and can't afford an attorney. My husband and I can afford a great attorney, so we will most likely win. We are better equipped to be parents than this girl will ever be. My baby deserves everything, and I can give that to her. Birth mom works nights and weekends in a service job and can't even afford rent, much less a baby. I am ready to fight for my child. But my sister-in-law, female 48, disagrees and says I'm an a-hole for not giving my baby back. Husband hasn't really expressed an opinion, but he didn't complain when I paid a $30,000 retainer to a lawyer. Sister-in-law also says I'm a huge a-hole because I said I would call CPS on the birth mom if they made me give my baby to her. I just want my baby to be safe and loved and in the best home, mine. Am I the a-hole? Yes, the a-hole. It isn't your baby. You're using the poor girl's financial status to take her baby away from her. She was probably pressured into putting her up for adoption when she didn't want to deep down. That birth and you taking her child away from her is trauma. She is allowed to change her mind, as she has the legal right to within those 2 weeks. Entitled. With your mindset, you shouldn't have kids. All throughout this post is me, my baby. It is mine, not yours. Go to therapy instead of using infertility as an excuse to inflict trauma and be selfish. No one owes infertile women children. Edit 2. With more thinking, I've realized OP shouldn't even be put in charge of a foster child. They don't want to give a child a good life. They want to own a child. They have severe problems considering they're considering calling CPS on the birth mom for being poor. Yes, the a-hole. Having more money does not make you a better person, caregiver, or mother. Right now you are displaying a troubled lack of empathy, which makes me concerned for any child raised in your home. Imagine being that 19-year-old girl without resources and family support. She finds herself pregnant and makes what has to be the most difficult choice a person can ever make, to let her baby go to another family to raise. Then, you carry the child for 9 months, feel her kick, and have to give birth, and someone else takes her immediately from you. You don't get to hold your child first, you don't get to feed her, and then you go home from the hospital alone. Your breasts hurt, you're producing milk for a baby that isn't there to feed, you're bleeding and sore and emotional. And then you realize you have made a huge mistake. It may be tough, and you may have to work around the clock, but you want to be the mother to your child. That is most likely what this young lady is going through. And you're all, too bad, boo-hoo, she mine, and you're too poor to deserve what is legally your right. I know the adoption road is a long, winding, hard one, but it should be, because these children are at stake. Shame on you for being so cold and callous towards this devastated teenager. I'm not sure this is true, as a revocation period typically does not mean that the birth mom needs to hire a lawyer. The adoption won't go through. This is not your baby. You won't be able to keep it. And by dragging this out, you are only making it harder on everyone. I feel bad for you, but yes, the a-hole. My 25 male. Parents have gotten divorced when I was about 13. My mother did not remarry because she thought it would be better for my mental health, which it was. My father, however, remarried and has a stepdaughter, 14. He missed almost all of my football and basketball games to spend time with his daughter. He favored her over his biological child, while my mother loved me more than anything. Whenever there was a disagreement, he always took her side. It was a pretty toxic environment. I stayed most days at a friend's house because it was better than back home. After I graduated and got a job, I cut all contact with them and stayed with my mother. I'm getting married soon and decided to invite my family from my mom's side and my friends. My father later called me, and so did many of my other cousins, asking why they weren't invited. They found out through my mom's Facebook. I had been getting repetitive calls from all of them. I had to explain to every single one of them why. It was very exhausting. Some accepted, others didn't. Anyways, my father called me and he started screaming at the top of his lungs. He missed my graduation for her. He missed a lot of my birthdays for her. My stepsister, who called me saying I was acting entitled and selfish, all while verbally harassing me. I said some bad things about her and her mom and ended the call. She started spam calling me after that. A few weeks later, I received a call from my father. I answered it and he started profusely apologizing for about 2 minutes and trying to display waterworks. The second he finished apologizing, he asks me for financial assistance. Him and his family were getting evicted soon because the mother and father both lost their jobs. I'm an electrical engineer, so I could help them pay rent, but I refused. My dad's side of the family has been calling me saying I'm taking it too far. Am I the a-hole? Tell your father that he can look to his favorite, your stepsister. If he needs help paying the rent. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. He wasn't there for you, and he isn't really interested in a relationship with you now. He only views you as an ATM. His side of the family can come up with the money for him, his wife, and your stepsister. It sounds like it's been years of no contact that was preceded by years of being uninvolved in your life. It seems a bit delusional to suddenly pop up, apologize for being a crap father for years, and in the same breath, ask for money. Not the a-hole. I, 24 female, have a brother, 32 male. He's got 5 kids, kind of. 14 female and male, 9 female, 1 male, 16 female, Rachel. My grandmother passed when I was 16. She'd always promised him she would leave her home behind for him if she passed on. That is, until the year before she passed. He cut contact with her because she didn't help him with money. So she left it to me. I came out as bi when I was 14. My family stopped talking to me. My mother disowned me, and so I had no choice but to move in with an uncle I barely knew. I married my wife 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I still didn't contact any family, but my brother's daughter, Rachel, reached out to me that year. She was asking for a place to stay, said she came out as gay and got disowned by my brother. I drove 200 kilometers to pick her up. She didn't have anything with her, not even a hair tie. When I brought her home, I shared some of my things with her, and the next day I made sure to go buy her things she'd need. I enrolled her into an online school because we live far from any schools, and I got her a psychologist. About a year later, my brother contacted. He was asking for a place to stay. I told him he could come stay with us. I tried making space for them by clearing out 3 rooms, one for my brother, the rest so children could share. He and his other children often cornered Rachel. They only got worse with each second they stayed with me. His children were loud. They were constantly arguing. They kept breaking things. His children would constantly terrorize my dog, etc. This all continued for 6 months. My wife and I went out on a trip for a week. She had a business trip and her boss said I could come. About 2 days after we arrived at the resort, Rachel called us crying. She told us we needed to go home ASAP. We did. We came back to my brother having painted his room, his children's rooms, saying they should get to make themselves feel at home. Rachel had told them that my wife and I were more family to her than they were during a dispute, which resulted in them withholding her PS from her, one of the twins stealing her makeup, and blocking her from any source of entertainment. I threw my brother and his children out the moment I saw what was going on. I refused to let them back in. My brother claimed that the house was supposed to be his. So am I the a-hole? Why in the ever-living heck did you think it was a good idea to allow the family that disowned Rachel to move in with you all while Rachel was also living with you? I cannot believe even for a second that she was ever okay with that and did not tell you about it. Also, you threw them out only when it actually began to inconvenience you and your wife personally. Really makes me wonder how much you were thinking about her welfare this whole time. I didn't think it was a good idea when my brother reached out to me. I consulted Rachel first and foremost. I asked Rachel whether or not she wanted to let him stay for a while or move out. She said she wanted to try and fix things with her father. Of course, I asked her whether or not she was sure. I reminded her that the moment she said she wanted them out, they'd be out. Of course, I do agree with you. I should have just ignored him and pretended that he didn't reach out. Rachel suffered, and there isn't much I can do about that now other than try to be there for her. Not the a-hole for kicking them out. Yes, the a-hole for letting them move in after they disowned their own child. You should never have put her in that situation. Not the a-hole. You aren't putting them on the street. Their behavior is incompatible with staying in your house. If they restrained themselves in any way, they would be welcome in your house. I mean, I wouldn't have entertained the possibility of someone who kicked out their gay child, then staying in my place. But you went above and beyond, and they took advantage of that. I have 2 kids, one 16-year-old boy and one 31-year-old daughter. Me and my son have a great hobby together. It's building Lego blocks. I guess it's a super common hobby. Oh well. Anyway, I have spent $10,000 on the hobby, and me and my son built a pretty large city. Today, my daughter was visiting home and found out her room has been converted into the Lego room. My daughter was furious for destroying her room and smashed and broke a lot of the structures me and my son have built together. She also rendered a ton of blocks unusable, and I probably lost around $2,000 from her rampage. I thought it was okay to convert the room, as my daughter moved out all of her stuff 3 years back as we had a room no one was using. At this point, I told my daughter that she needs to get out of the house and that she needs to learn manners if she wants to stay inside my house. I also told her that if she does not leave, then I am suing her for the damages. She left and blocked me. Anyway, I found out from some of her posts that I was not blocked on, saying that I am a useless crap parent for converting her bedroom into a piece of crap toy area that is for babies for a 16-year-old. She says that I am a bad person for converting her room without telling her or asking for her opinion. The thing is, that room was completely empty with none of my daughter's stuff in there. Not the a-hole. What 31-year-old woman is upset that they don't have a bedroom at their parents' house? And then she threw a tantrum and destroyed your work? She needs to desperately grow up. She's way too old to be acting like this. Doesn't she have her own room at her own house? You don't get to keep your childhood home in your parents' house forever. Eventually, the parents, aka the legal owners of the house, are allowed to reclaim that space on their own property and use it how they see fit. I moved out of my mom's house for the final time right before I turned 20, and that same year, she converted my room into an office, which she needed for work. I never thought anything of it, because I had my own apartment. I didn't need a room in both homes. Not the a-hole, not in the slightest, and your daughter really needs to grow up. No wonder it took her until age 28 just to move out. She has the maturity level of a 10-year-old. Not the a-hole. Was the room supposed to stay a shrine to her forever? She's a grown woman with a home of her own. This is ridiculous.